بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Dear students in Human Resource Management class, welcome everybody to Al-Isra University e-learning. In this video, I will be talking about chapter 8 in our textbook, Performance Management and Appraisal. Performance Management and Appraisal. In this chapter, we will cover these points, basic concepts in performance appraisal, and we will talk about appraisal methods and the dealing with appraisal problems and the appraisal interview. We will also talk about performance management, and finally we will talk about talent management practices and employees appraisal. Performance appraisal. What is the meaning of performance appraisal? Performance appraisal means evaluating an employee's current or past performance relative to his or her performance standards. The evaluation process of employees' performance relative to performance standards. Effective appraisal also requires that supervisors set performance standards, and it requires that the employee receive the training, the feedback, and incentives required to eliminate performance deficiencies. So, in this process, there is actual performance and there is a standard performance. Here, there is some deviations between these two performances. In the appraisal process, we evaluate and detect these deficiencies between the standard performance and the actual performance for the employees. Stripped to its essentials, performance appraisal involves, these are three stages of performance appraisal cycle. The first one is setting work standards. The first step or stage of performance appraisal cycle is setting work standards. The second is assessing the employee's actual performance relative to those standards. So in the first step, we set the standards. In the second step, we assess the actual performance compared to those standards. And the third step, providing feedback to the employee with the aim of helping him or her to eliminate performance deficiencies or to continue above par performance. So, measures all these three steps, the performance of appraisal cycle: setting work standards, assessing the actual performance compared to these standards, and providing feedback to employees with the aim of helping him or her to eliminate performance deficiencies or to continue above par performance. This is what called performance appraisal cycle. Okay, why appraisal or why appraise performance? There are 5 reasons to appraise subordinates' performance. These are 5 reasons why to appraise subordinates' performance. First, most employers still base pay, promotion, and retention decisions on the employee's appraisal. So, employees appraisal is important when taking decisions such as retention, promotion, and pay. Second reason, appraisals play a central role in the employer's performance management process. So there is performance management process, and the performance appraisal plays a central role in the employer's performance management process. Performance management means continuously making sure that each employee's performance makes sense in terms of a company's overall goals. Note here, performance management, not performance appraisal. Performance management means continuously making sure that each employee's performance makes sense in terms of company's overall goals. The third reason, that appraisal lets you and the subordinate develop a plan for correcting any deficiencies and to reinforce the things the subordinate does right. So, the third reason, performance appraisal gives you the opportunity to develop a plan and correcting any deficiencies. The fourth reason, appraisals should serve a useful career planning purpose. It also serves useful career planning purpose. They provide an opportunity to review the employee's career plans in light of his or her exhibited strengths and weaknesses. So it is also useful in career planning process. The fifth and last reason, supervisors use appraisal to identify employees' training and development needs. So it is also useful in identifying the training needs. They let supervisors identify performance gaps between current and expected performance and to formulate the remedial steps required. So these are the 5 reasons why to appraise the performance. And in this figure, these are the 3 steps of performance appraisal: establish or appraisal cycle, performance appraisal cycle, establish goals and performance standards, then appraise the employee's performance, then feedback to take corrective action, coach and counsel employee, or other steps as required. Okay, now let's talk about performance management. Performance management is the continuous process of identifying, measuring, and developing the performance of individuals and teams, and aligning their performance with the organization's goals. This is performance management in action. Performance management is the continuous process of identifying, measuring, and developing the performance of individuals and teams and aligning their performance with the organization's goals. Many employers have what they call performance management but still use traditional performance appraisal. Here is the key difference between performance management and performance appraisal is that performance management continuous and goal-based adjustments. The key differences are performance management's continuous and goal-based adjustments. As one expert put it, a system that involves employees' evaluation once a year without an ongoing effort to provide feedback and coaching is not a true performance management system. Okay, so this is the difference between performance management and performance appraisal. And here the basics of performance appraisal. The basics of performance appraisal. Defining the employees' goals and performance standards. Most employees need to expect to know ahead of time on what basis their managers will appraise them. How their managers and on what basis their managers will appraise them. Managers use one or more of three bases. Here there are one or more of three bases. These bases are goals, standards, and competencies. Goals, standards, and competencies. These are the three bases that managers can use to appraise the employees. The first one is managers can assess to what extent the employee is attaining his or her goals. This is the base. On the base of goal, managers can assess to what extent the employee is attaining his or her goals. Ideally, each employee's goals should derive from the company's overall aims. As an example, a company-wide goal is reducing cost by 10%. Should translate into goals for how individuals, employees or teams will cut costs. Here, some employers use a management by objective approach. Managers say that effective goals should be SMART. SMART means specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And I think we explained more about SMART goals in other courses. So the goal must be SMART, and the goals is one base that the managers can use to assess or to appraise his employees. Okay, a second popular base upon which to appraise someone is to use a form with generic criteria such as quality and quantity. These are the standard form. Thus, an instructor's appraisal form might include criteria such as the instructor is well prepared. So this is a second basis can be used in performance appraisal, which we indicate here standards. Standards is the second basis. Generic criteria such as quality and quantity means standard and as a standard form. Thirdly, talent management competencies and behavioral standards. A third option is to appraise employees based on their mastery of the competencies or skills, or you can call them behavioral standards the job requires. Consider an example. Some company appraise employees' skills using a skill matrix. This matrix shows the basic skills to be assessed, such as technical expertise, and the minimum level of each skill the job requires. Employees with the requisite level of each skill are qualified to fill this position. This is a simple example of using the behavioral skills, behavioral standards, and competency matrix, competency-based appraisal. Okay, now let's go into learning objective number 2. Answer the question, who should do the appraising? Who should do the appraising? Appraisals by the immediate supervisor are the heart of most appraisals. Getting a supervisor's appraisal is straightforward and makes sense. So the supervisor should be, and usually is, in the best position to observe and evaluate his or her subordinate's performance. The supervisor is also responsible for the person's performance. So the supervisor or immediate supervisor is at the heart of most appraisals. Yet, relying only on supervisor's rating is not always wise. For example, an employee's supervisor may not understand or appreciate how customers and colleagues who interact with the employee rate his or her performance. Furthermore, there is always some danger of bias against the employee. If so, managers have several options. So they go beyond supervisor appraisal to peer appraisals. Peer appraisals with more firms using self-managing teams, appraisal of an employee by his or her peers. Peer appraisal is more popular. Peer appraisal. Typically, an employee due for an annual appraisal chooses an appraisal chairperson. The latter then selects one supervisor and 3 peers to evaluate the employee's work. And research indicates that peer appraisal can be effective way in performance appraisal. Another method, rating committees. Some companies use rating committees. A rating committee is usually composed of the employee's immediate supervisor and 3 or 4 other supervisors. Not only the immediate supervisor, addition to 3 or 4 supervisors. Using multiple raters is advantageous. It can help cancel out problems such as bias on the part of individual raters. It also can provide a way to include in the appraisal the different facts of an employee's performance observed by different appraisers. So, multiple raters often see different facts of an employee's performance. Studies often find that the ratings obtained from different sources rarely match. It is therefore advisable to at least obtain ratings from the supervisor, his or her boss, and perhaps another manager who is familiar with the employee's work. Okay, so who should do the appraising? Firstly, and at the heart of appraisal is the the immediate supervisor. And peer appraisal, another technique. Rating committee is supervisor with 3 or 4 other supervisors. And self-rating. Some employers obtain employees' self-ratings, usually in conjunction with supervisors' ratings. The basic problem, of course, is that employees usually rate themselves higher than do their supervisors or peers. So this is another technique or another method, self-rating. Another method is appraisal by subordinates. This is another type. Many employers have subordinates rate their managers, usually for development rather than for pay purposes. So this method can be used usually for development rather than for pay purposes. Anonymity affects such upward feedback. Managers who get feedback from subordinates who identify themselves view the upward feedback process most positively than do managers who get anonymous feedback. However, subordinates prefer giving anonymous responses, and those who must identify themselves tend to give inflated ratings. Upward feedback can improve a manager's performance. Upward feedback can improve a manager's performance. Another type or another form for appraisal, 360-degree feedback. 360-degree feedback. It means that the employer collects performance information all around the employee. Collect the information about the performance all around the employee from his or her supervisors, subordinates, peers, and internal or external customers, generally for developmental rather than pay purposes also. This method can be used also for developmental rather than pay purposes. The usual process is to have the raters complete online appraisal survey on the ratee. Computerized systems then compile all this feedback into individualized reports to ratee. The person may then meet with the supervisor to develop a self-improvement plan. This is 360-degree feedback process. Crowd appraisal is the last form of performance appraisal. Crowd appraisals. In a twist on 360-degree appraisal, more employers are using new crowdsourcing, recognition, and appraisal software tools such as Globoforce and Salesforce, Rebel to obtain co-workers' commitments and appraisal. So these are as software tools can be used to obtain co-workers' comments and appraisal. Now let's go to learning objective number 3. Discuss the pros and cons of at least 8 performance appraisal methods. These are the methods how to conduct the actual appraisal. There are several methods to conduct performance appraisal. One method is graphic rating scale method. Graphic rating scale method. A graphic rating scale lists a number of traits and a range of performance for each. In this method, lists a number of traits and a range of performance for each trait. As in figure number 4, a typical scale lists traits such as teamwork and a range of performance standards below expectations, meets expectations, and role model. It's a scale. For each trait, the supervisor rates each subordinate by circling or checking the score that best describe the subordinate performance for each trait, and then total scores for all traits. It's a scale. And let's go to figure number 4 and see the example. This is figure number 4. For example, this is a trait, organizational know-how, and the supervisor can describe the employee according to these three rating scales: below expectation, meets expectation, and role model. And this is the trait. Another trait is personal effectiveness. The employee may be indicated here under this category: below expectation, or meet expectation, and role model. It's the same as a scale. Teamwork is another trait, and here the rating and the ranking scale. Achieving business results, another trait, and so on. This is an example of rating scale that can be used in graphic rating scale method. I think it's clear. Alternation ranking method. Alternation ranking method. Ranking employees from best to worst on a trait or traits is another popular appraisal method. Ranking employees from best to worst on a trait, because it is usually easier to distinguish between the worst and best employees than to rank them. Alternation ranking method is useful. With this method, the supervisor use a form like in figure number 5, and we will see it, to specify the employee who is highest in the trait being measured, and also the one who is the lowest. Here, or he or she alternates between highest and lowest until all employees to be rated have been ranked. And let's go to figure number 5 to see the example. This is figure number 5. And these are the ranking. For the trait you are measuring, list all the employees you want to rank. Put the highest ranking employee's name on line 1 put the lowest ranking employee name on line 20. So here we put the highest employee name, the highest ranking employee here, and here the lowest one, and in between we rank all employees. Then list next highest ranking in line 2 and next lowest ranking in line 19, and so on. Continue until all names are be on the scale. And here we need to put the trait that we are rank our employees on the base of it. So for example, trait is teamwork player. Teamwork player, here the trait, and here are the ranking. For example, employee A is the highest ranking as a team worker or a teamwork player. Employee B is the lowest in this trait, and so on. This is the alternation ranking method. The paired comparison method is the third step. Paired comparison method. With the paired comparison method, every subordinate to be rated is paired with and compared to every other subordinate on each trait. For example, suppose that there are 5 employees to be rated. With this method, a chart such as that in figure number 6 shows all possible pairs of employees for each trait. Then for each trait, the supervisor indicates with a plus or minus who is the better employee of the trait, of the pair. Next, the number of times an employee is rated better is added up. In figure number 6, employee Maria ranked highest, has the most plus marks for quality of work, and Art ranked highest for creativity. Let's go to figure number 6 below and see the example. Figure number 6. Yes. For the trait quality of works, A. Art, B. Maria, C. Chuck, Diana, and Jules. And here the pluses. Here as a comparison between Maria and Art. Maria is plus. Maria and Chuck. Maria is plus. Maria and Daniel plus Maria. So, and then we calculate all pluses and rank. Maria ranks highest in this trait, while in the other trait creativity, Art ranks the highest here. The person who take more pluses consider the highest in according to this criteria and according to paired comparison method. Another method is forced distribution method. Forced distribution method. With the forced distribution method, the manager places predetermined percentages of subordinates. Predetermined percentage of subordinates in performance categories, as when a professor grades on a curve. An estimated 60% of Fortune 50 firms use some form of ranking. Forced distribution advantages are that it prevents supervisors from rating most employees. One advantage is it prevents supervisors from rating most employees satisfactory or high. 2. The second advantage, it makes top and bottom performers stand out. Top and bottom performance stand out. This is an example. John, the supervisor of manufacturing department at a computer firm. Supervisor is in the manufacturing department at a computer firm, is in the process of evaluating his staff performance. He has determined that 50% of the group will be identified as high performers, 20% as above average performance, 30% as average performers, 20% as below average performers, and 50% as poor performance. Which performance appraisal tool John is choosing to use? This is an example of forced distribution method. According to this method, the supervisor or the employer predetermine the percentage and then allocate each or evaluate each employer in which category. These categories high performers, average performers, above average performance, average performance, below average performance, and poor performance. These are 5 categories and percentages. While widely used, this forced distribution method, the drawbacks, while widely used, some balk at forced distribution appraisal. As most students know, forced distribution grading is unforgiving. It's unforgiving. With forced distribution, either you are in the top 10% or you are not, and if you are in the bottom 10%, you get an F. No questions asked. Your professor, this is an example. So the biggest compliance, this is a survey, and it found that the biggest compliance, 44% said that this method damages morale. In one survey, they found that the biggest compliance, 44%, said that this method, from this disadvantage of this method, is damage morale, and 47% said it creates interdepartmental inequities. And it damages morale. These are the disadvantages of forced distribution method. These are the advantages 1 and 2, the advantages, and these are the disadvantages of this method. Another method is critical incident method. The critical incident method entails keeping a record of good or undesirable examples, keeping a record for positive and negative performance of an employee, work-related behavior, and reviewing it with the employee at predetermined times. So it's a record, saving records for a good and poor or positive and negative behavior, and reviewing it with the employee in predetermined time. Employers often compile such incidents to supplement a rating or ranking method. They can use this method to supplement rating or ranking method. Keeping a running list of critical incidents provide concrete examples of what specifically the subordinates can do to eliminate any performance deficiencies. It also provides opportunity for mid-year corrections if required. So compiling incidents all year also helps reduce supervisors' tendencies to focus unduly on just the last few weeks when appraising subordinate performance. So critical incident methods is a record for negative and positive behavior and reviewing the employee in mid-year or yearly. Another method is behaviorally anchored rating scale, BARS. Behaviorally anchored rating scale is an appraisal method that combines the benefits of critical incidents and the quantitative rating by anchoring a quantified scale with the specific narrative examples of good and poor performance expressed as specific behavior. So it's a combination between two methods, critical incidents and the quantitative rating. Figure 7 is an example. It shows the behaviorally anchored rating scale for the trait salesmanship skill used for an automobile salesperson. Note how the various performance levels from 10 is high and 1 is low. Let's go to figure number 7. Figure number 7 below and see the example. Here 10 is the highest and 1 is the lowest to measure a trait of salesmanship skills. The highest one, a prospect said that she would only buy one of our luxury convertibles or would buy a competitor's car when the finance firm rejected. This is an example. You can read it. But the most important thing is its rating from 1 is the highest, 10 is the highest and 1 is the lowest ranking. Appraisal form in practice, as we see, and the management by objective method is another method. Management by objective method. The term management by objective or MBO usually refers to a multi-step company-wide goal setting and appraisal program. Multi-step company-wide goal setting and appraisal program MBO, management by objective, requires the manager to set specific, measurable, organizationally relevant goals with each employee, and then periodically discuss the latter's progress toward these goals. The steps are: set the organization's goals, establish a company-wide plan for next year and set goals. Second step is set departmental goals. Department heads and their superiors jointly set goals for their departments. And thirdly, discuss departmental goals. Department heads discuss the department's goals with their subordinates and ask them to develop their own individual goals. They should ask how could each employee help the department attain its goals. And fourthly, define expected results. Set individual goals. Department heads and their subordinates set short-term performance targets for each employee. This is the fourth step. The fifth step is to conduct performance reviews. After a period, department heads compare each employee's actual and expected results and provide feedback. This is the last step, to provide feedback to subordinates and make any plans to re-certifying or continuing the person's performance. This is the steps. These are the steps of MBO, management by objective, and management by objective can be considered as a method of performance appraisal. And the other method is computerized and web-based performance appraisal. Computerized and web-based performance appraisal. And from the title we can understand that computerized meaning using the computer, PC, and the web to support appraisal tools. For example, there is some example. More employers use web or PC supported appraisal tools. Employees update their plans quarterly. They then do self-evaluation at the end of the year with follow-up reviews by their supervisors. So in this method, every employee enter the system and set goals and development plans for themselves that makes sense in terms of the company or the organizational objectives. Then employee update their plans quarterly. So quarterly means 4 times a year. They then do self-evaluation at the end of the year with follow-up reviews by their supervisors. Another method is electronic performance monitoring, EPM, electronic performance monitoring system. Use computer technology to allow managers to monitor their employees' rate, accuracy, and time spent working online or just on their computers. So according to this method, the employer can monitor their employees' rate, accuracy, and time spent working on their computers. This is electronic performance monitoring Low skilled, highly monitoring participants did more poorly than low skilled, unmonitoring participants did. EBM also seems to raise employee stress. It also seems to raise employee stress. The global issues in HR feature discusses some special challenges in appraising employees abroad. This is a research opportunity. Okay, these are the methods of performance appraisal. Conversation days when employees at Juniper Networks expressed concerns about their annual performance review and the lack of positive feedback, Juniper changed the process. Instead of once a year performance reviews, there are now semi-annual or conversation days. The emphasis in these managers-employee conversation is one area for improvement and growth, and on setting stretch goals that align with the employee's career interest. Okay, that's all for today presentation. We talked about the methods. The methods can be used for performance appraisal, and who should do the performance appraisal, and what is the meaning of performance appraisal, and what is the difference between performance appraisal and management appraisal. That's all for today presentation. In the next presentation we will talk about the dealing with appraisal problems and the appraisal interview. Thank you so much for listening, and see you later.